all of you being involved in the meeting that we are a part of tonight. Really quick, I'm just going to read a statement from the governor. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the ability of this virus to spread from person to person, the governor has implemented a number of executive orders directed at controlling spread of this virus by minimizing face-to-face interactions. Public gatherings are strongly discouraged by the CDC, state of Utah, and local health departments since they facilitate face-to-face contact and pose an elevated risk of virus transmission. The Division of Wildlife Resources and the chair of this public body has determined this public gathering at Regional Advisory Council and Wildlife Board meetings presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who attend, and will conduct this meeting using a fully electronic format. This meeting format is authorized by recent amendment to the Utah Code and the executive order by Utah Governor Gary Herbert, and will be temporarily used in place of the in-person public meetings that usually occur around the state. Anyone wishing to comment on agenda topics in future meetings or to observe this meeting may do so by logging into the division's webpage, where instructions and links will be provided. So it should be noted that the agenda is always placed on the division's website. You're allowed to view the division recommendations made for the agenda items and then make comments that then will be taken into consideration by RAC members and the RAC chair. So if you've done so, thank you so much. It's really important to be a part of the public process, whether it be anything regarding your natural resources. So we appreciate you doing so. So that being said, really quick, I'm just kind of going to do a roll call and have people say yay or nay. So Kent Johnson, representing at large.
Yay.
Jeff Christensen, ag. Eric Duke, at large.
Yay.
Thank you. Scoot Flannery, sportsman.
Yay.
Eric Luke, sportsman.
Yay.
Great. Jay Skyman, at large. Thank you. Darren Olson, representing the Forest Service.
Yes.
Thank you. Kirk Player, sportsman.
Yes.
Thank you. Brad Richmond, non-consumptive.
Yes.
Thank you. Lynn Sitterud, elected official.
Yes.
Colleen Taylor, ag. Todd Thorne, at large.
Yes.
Thank you. Dana Truman, BLM.
Yes.
Thank you. Garish Willis, non-consumptive. And I think Garish did tell us he was going to be slightly late. And I am the RAC chair. My name is Tricia Dean, and I represent sportsmen and or women. So again, thank you so much. So let's go ahead and jump in. I do also want to state that there's a number of division employees here, and we will hear from them at various times and or reference them when need be. I don't want to kind of go through the whole list, if that's okay. Sorry if you're a division employee and you take offense to that. Sorry about that, but I'm going to move right along. Aaron has told me that I have to do so, so I have to go through here. Okay, so we will start with the approval of the agenda and minutes. So do I have somebody that would like to make a motion on that?
This is Dana. I make a motion that we approve the agenda and minutes.
Okay, so we have a motion by Dana to approve the minutes and agenda and minutes as presented. Do we have a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, and we have a second on that by Kent. And I'm not going to take a roll on that. If you would actually just raise, no, I'm not going to take, is that okay, Chris, that I not take, or do you want me to take a roll on that?
I think you should.
Okay, I will. Okay, Kent?
Yes.
Yay or no? Great. Steve?
Yay.
Thank you. Scoot?
Yay.
Thank you. Eric?
Yes.
Darren?
Yes.
Kirk?
Yes.
Thank you. Brad?
Yes.
Lynn?
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
And Garish, and I don't think Garish has come on yet. So, all right. So that is unanimous. Thank you so much. So let's move on now to the Wildlife Board meeting update from the last Wildlife Board. And that is me. It went really quickly. I don't have much to tell you. I'll just kind of quickly move through the motions. We had a motion that they approved the use of air rifles for upland game. That was not to be approved until they were approved for Pittman-Robertson tax. And that the following motion was made and seconded and passed unanimously. So they have to, that's not going to be, the use of air rifles will not be used until they're approved for Pittman-Robertson. The remainder of upland game was presented and approved unanimously. There was approval on the AIS rule amendments that was presented and passed unanimously. And recommendations for the walk-in access rule amendments, again, motions made, seconded and approved unanimously, so no side motions. And then lastly, prohibited species variance request, and that a motion was made and approved. So pretty mellow. It went really, really, really fast. I can't remember how fast, but it was quick, like pre-lunch. So that's a big deal. So the only interesting thing was that air rifle kind of side motion that was made. Are there any questions on that? If not, I'm going to go to the regional update by Chris Wood, the Regional Supervisor for the Southeastern region.
Yeah, good evening. Thanks for being here and thanks for being part of this public process and this meeting. Just have a few things to update you on. The big update is the bison issue on the Tavaputs. Maybe I'll save that for last and answer any questions you might have. But as you've noticed and experienced probably with COVID, outdoor recreation and being outdoors is hitting an all-time high. People just want to be outdoors and recreating. And we've seen that with our hunting and fishing licenses. Fishing licenses are up, hunting licenses are up. A lot of our big game tags for the upcoming fall are sold out. There are some archery, bull and spike elk tags available. But other than that, we're sold out. So that's exciting. People want to be out in nature and be hunting and fishing. A few things maybe to make note of, to tell you about. We did have, every year we go to the Navajo Nation and sell deer permits to them. We set aside a few hundred tags, 250 tags, and we go down there and sell them permits. We did not go to the Navajo Nation this year due to the COVID struggles that the nation and the state is having. And so we sold them over the phone, and over a 3-day period, we sold out of those tags. That's an agreement that we have with the nation. We've had for almost 20 years now. Let's see here. Our aquatics crew is busy, trying to keep up with the demand. People recreating on the waters and fishing. The aquatics crew did oversee, and with our partners, the Forest Service, the expansion of a boat ramp at Joe's Valley. And so that's almost probably doubled in size. And so the first weekend that boat ramp was open, it was full. So there's expanded boat ramp and parking at Joe's Valley. So that's exciting. Our native aquatics crew is busy running the rivers, the Colorado and the Green, and doing surveys along the San Rafael. They're looking for native fish, removing non-native fish in some stretches, and also doing other surveys like plains toad surveys and boreal toad surveys. So they've had a busy, productive summer. Our habitat section last week was in Bluff. We don't get down there too often, but we were in Bluff. We were working with the Chucker Foundation and the Mule Deer Foundation and putting in a guzzler that'll be both for scaled quail that we recently transplanted over the last few years down there, and also mule deer. Our habitat section this time of year is also working our lands, spraying weeds, building fence, irrigating in some of the properties that we have, like Nash Wash and Gordon Creek, getting those properties ready for the upcoming season. Let's see here. Our law enforcement officers have been busy as well. We have 2 new officers. I think I mentioned this last time. We have Officer Cheyenne Hudson. She is new, and she will be stationed at Bullfrog, working both Lake Powell and the Henry Mountains. And then we have Brian Dennis. He will be He's working our East Carbon District and stationed out of Price. And we're thrilled to have those new 2 officers. We need them. We've been short-staffed for the last few years. It'll be great to have them. They start in the next few weeks in their assigned areas. Our wildlife section has been busy. They've been classifying elk at the end of July. We've been also working on bison classifications this last week on the Henry Mountains. There will be no bison flight this year due to COVID and some restrictions and the inability to get aircraft to, statewide. And so we had to cut that flight this year. It's usually a flight we do every year, but we'll be fine cutting this year. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. Let's see, the Henry Mountain Bison Committee was meeting for the last year or so. Due to COVID, we stopped meeting in the spring. It looks like we're in this virtual meeting situation for the foreseeable future. So we're talking about meeting as virtually in the next few weeks or few months and getting that Henry Mountain Bison Committee going again and trying to get the momentum that we might have lost due to COVID. We're rewriting the plan, and hopefully in the next few months or so, hopefully no later than the end of 2021, we have a Henry Mountain Bison plan to take through the RAC and the boards. But that committee is a great group of interest groups that have come together to help rewrite that plan. I was also going to mention mountain goats on the LaSalle's. We are working with the Forest Service to analyze and write up a 5-year report. We have 5 years of vegetation data on the LaSalle's, and we're trying to find someone, a third party, to look at that data and write us a report and analyze it for us. So that's in the works. And then maybe lastly, it's been bison season. It's been a bison-filled summer. If you remember, the division formed a committee. It was made up of Division of Wildlife, Department of Ag, representatives from Emory and Carbon County, sportsmen, SITLA, BLM, the museum, the University of Utah Museum, who manages Range Creek, and the Ute Tribe. Maybe I missed somebody out. And Utah State University, Dr. Mike King. So we met for the last year and a half or so, trying to come up with the plan on how to deal with the bison that come off of the Ute Reservation and onto public and private lands. We finalized that plan in the spring, in I think February, and in that plan, it identifies various strategies for all the agencies and the partners to implement that will help reduce this conflict and this issue. One of the ideas and strategies identified in that plan was to have an over-the-counter bison hunt. And the division took that strategy, an idea that came from that committee, and we ran it through the public process, and we put it through the RAC and the board, and it passed. And so you saw that earlier this spring. In that plan, it also says that the Division of Wildlife will remove bison that come on private lands in the months of April 15th through July 31st. So in June and July, there were bison on private lands on the Tavaputs Plateau. And so we followed the plan and we acted, and we acted pretty quickly. We were up there in a matter of a day, and we brought in helicopters in some instances to look for them. We brought up a crew of 10 people sometimes, but over a period of a few weeks, we were able to remove 11 bison from the Tavaputs Plateau, and we donated the meat to the public. So August 1st happened on Saturday, and August 1st is the start date of this over-the-counter bison hunt. And we were, so now the public has the opportunity to remove those bison. If you want to buy an over-the-counter permit, you have to take this online course. And in an online course, we throw out all the possible scenarios you can encounter: rugged terrain and weather and private property rights and access, and the University of Utah Range Creek Museum and their permitting system. We're pretty open about how difficult of a hunt this is. And we want people to know what to expect when they buy this permit. So that being said, we had about 80 people buy this permit so far. I haven't heard the most recent update, but as of Saturday evening, the first day of the opening of this hunt, we had 5 bison removed off of private lands, and we had 1 bison removed off of a public land in Range Creek. I will say, if any of the public is watching, this is a tough hunt. This is expert level hunting, and the person who removed the bison, who harvested the bison on the public land, is an expert level hunter. They packed in with horses, and they knew that they would take 2 days to salvage the meat, and so they brought bags and they put half the bison in the stream to cool it off, and they packed out the other half. They came back the next day and packed out the rest. So they were able to salvage all the meat, and they had a great experience, a great backcountry, rugged, hardcore hunting experience. But they knew that going in, and they were prepared, so they were successful. So that is going on now, and we tried to make this hunt as lenient or as open as possible. So in Utah, you can hunt big game from August 1st till January 31st, and that's the length of this hunt. I don't think we anticipated a herd of bison being on the Tavaputs, at least not a dozen of them, in June, July, and August. But that's what happened this year. And as a result, we were able to remove them as an agency, and then August 1st, bring in some hunters. From what I hear, there's private landowners up there who have allowed public people they know and brought in the public to hunt the bison. There's other landowners that don't want hunters on their property. So that's respect their rights, but they do have the tools now to remove bison from their lands. And if they wanted to, they could, charge trespassing fees and make a bunch of money while they're doing it. So we are excited for this opportunity and this tool to use. It's not a silver bullet by any means, but I think it also shows the tribe that as bison cross over, we're going to remove bison, and I think the tribe will act and work on more aggressively reducing their herd so that they don't cross over as much. And I think also gunfire and hunters and people present will also keep the bison a little bit on their side. So a combination of all these things, all these strategies we identified in this plan that we wrote, hopefully that will keep, they'll work towards reducing the bison herd that's coming over. So that was a lot. I can answer any questions, or we can move on. What do you want to do?
Are there any questions for Chris?
Chris, have you heard from the tribe since you started hunting Saturday?
No, I have not personally. I did. One of our biologists said that as a response to our proposal, and I don't think this is since Saturday, but they knew that we were going to be hunting and the hunt was going to start, that they were increasing permits on their end. So that was exactly what we wanted. We want them to act based off of this hunt.
This is Brad. Can you hear me, Chris?
Yep, I can.
Where can you view that video to show people the difficulty of the hunt and so forth?
Yeah, if you go on our website and act as if you're buying a permit and go through, it'll pop up and you'll have to watch that before get a certificate before you can actually buy the permit. So I myself am not buying a permit, but I actually was acting like I was, and it allowed me to view the video, and I could buy it now. So that's the way I did it. It's on our website.
All right. Thank you.
Are there any more questions for Chris? If not, I think we're going to move along. And really quick, I want to thank Donnie and Kevin for being here. They're from the Wildlife Board, and we appreciate your guys' attendance. So let's go ahead and move on. So our first action item is Furbearer and Bobcat harvest recommendations from Darren DeBloois. I want to again specify that you should have watched his presentation online, and hopefully both the RAC and the public did that. So at this point, I'm going to move right to questions from the RAC for Darren. So Darren's here with us. And so if there's anybody from the RAC that want to ask him questions regarding his recommendations, please do so now.
Yeah, I've got a question. The question I have is there concerns from the division over non-consumptive groups jumping in and buying up as many Bobcat tags as they can, or there's a cap on the overall number of tags this year? I know that's happened in the past when there's been a cap, but is there a concern about that now, or has that been?
We haven't seen it so far, but it's definitely something that we could look at just in terms of success. I think one of the things that's driving it right now is that the prices for Bobcat pelts were down last year. And talking to the Trappers Association this week, they're expecting, they can't sell those pelts right now, so they're expecting a further drop. And so that seems to drive how many tags we sell more than anything. If the prices are high, we sell a lot. So we're kind of in a downward on the low end on prices. So I don't suspect that'll be a big issue, but it's definitely something we could take a look at. I suspect we'd see that in success per hunter.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, hi, Darren. This is Dana. I noticed that the data seems like the population is declining for bobcats, including like adult survival. Can you give us some background on why we're seeing that?
It looks like, I think the thing that's driving it is, especially with drought, we've seen some declines in prey base, so both rodents and lagomorphs. That seems to be the thing. It looks like juvenile survival is low, so that would indicate, or juveniles in the harvest is low. That may indicate a slowdown in reproduction. Percent females has actually come back a little bit. It's still below our objective, but it looks like it's heading in the right direction. So we'll keep an eye on it. But I think it's primarily probably drought driven. Those populations go up and down depending on what kind of prey is available. So that's my guess.
Thanks. And then I do understand that the price of pelts really does drive a lot of the harvest. But I was curious if you could explain a little bit, by keeping the cap, the number the same, yet reducing the number of permits per person. How is that a management tool?
When we've got two out, we have the option to reduce the cap. I think what we just decided this year that to reduce that by one more, and coupled with the pelt price, those two things in combination probably don't require a further reduction in the overall cap. But that was our thinking.
Well, thank you.
Are there any more questions for Darren? Those are great questions. Okay, so at this time, Chris, I'm going to go ahead. Do you have public comments? Do you want to do a synopsis of that?
Yeah, everyone has received the public comments in an email a few days ago, and you're able to review those. So I'm not going to actually go through the comments, but I will go through kind of how the pie chart looks with whether they support it or not. We had 50% of the people responding support the proposal, neutral for 25% of the people, and then 25% of the people oppose the proposal. Maybe I'll also say that for both Bobcat and Cougar recommendations, when we talk about those who oppose, there's different categories of why they oppose. Some people want more permits, some people want less permits. So keep in mind that when you see the word, when you see the percentage of people who oppose. That's it.
Okay, thank you. So at this point, we'll have the RAC either ask for clarifications from either Chris or Darren and or comments. And if we don't have any of that, we can entertain a motion.
This is Kent. I'll make a motion to approve the division's recommendation for Furbearer and Bobcat.
Okay, great. So I have a motion by Kent Johnson to approve the recommendations made for Furbearer and Bobcat harvest recommendations for 2020-21. Do I have a second on that?
This is Kirk. I'll second it.
Okay, so I have a second by Kirk. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and do a roll call vote. Kent. Yay or nay?
Yay.
Okay, great.
Yay.
Thank you. Steve?
Yay.
Thank you. Scoot?
Yay.
Thank you. Eric?
Yes.
Darren?
Yay.
Thank you. Kirk?
Yay.
Brad?
Yay.
Thank you. Lynn?
Yay.
Todd?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
Thank you. And is Garish online yet? Or have I missed anybody? I don't think he's online yet. So that passed unanimously. Thank you so much. All right, so now let's go ahead and move into the 6th agenda item, which is Cougar recommendations and rule amendments for 2020-21. A couple things. Darren wanted to make a note about an amended recommendation. And then I have one little quick, it was a comment that kind of came in on the side. So I want to go ahead and add that if that's okay. So Darren, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and share my screen here for a second.
Thank you.
Just so everybody can see what we're talking about. Can everybody see that okay?
Yes.
I'll take that as a yes. Sorry, let's throw those questions out. Who's going to answer? We recommended on the LaSalle's, the San Juan, and the Book Cliffs east a season structure change to lion harvest, and the original recommendation was to have that season be or closed to dogs from April 15th through November 2nd next year. We had some discussions with the region and with law enforcement down here, and we wanted to offer it an amended recommendation to that, and that is that during that time frame between April 15th and November 2nd, that if a person had a valid bear permit for the following seasons, spring limited entry, fall limited entry, a multi-season limited entry permit, or a bear pursuit permit, and also has a valid harvest objective or permit or pursuit permit for mountain lions, that they could hunt during that time frame using dogs or pursue. This is the reason we are recommending these season restrictions. Is if you remember when we did bears, we had quite a discussion and put a committee together to try to address some concerns, especially on the LaSalle's with the number of people afield in the spring. And we saw this spring during the bear hunt a lot of folks running dogs, and it was difficult to figure out who was there bear hunting and who was there lion hunting. And to some extent, it sort of defeated the purpose of the bear recommendation. And so that's where this is coming from. The only other thing I would add to this is just, if you recall in the presentation, there are quite a few things that have already taken place. The fall spot and stalk hunt is something that the director has already implemented, and that is ongoing from August 1st through December 31st. And any units that are under predator management plans in the presentation are also already been enacted by the director. So if you have questions about why those may or may not be in predator management, we can certainly answer those questions. But those will just be informational tonight. What we'll be voting on is the permit numbers and rule change recommendations. So hopefully that kind of sets the table for what we're talking about today. And that's it.
Thank you, Darren. And then I had just one, when I get, I'll get the same letters that you do. I often just quickly respond, thank you so much for participating in the public process. And so I'm not sure if you guys got this response because it was just to me personally. So this was Lynn Bales. He's with the San Juan Houndsman Association. I just want to state that he just made a quick amendment to his email. He said, there is an omission in my previous email. It states that there are 5-person camps that were suspected of purchasing harvest objective lion permits and using them to pursue bear on the San Juan. This is incorrect. There were 5 total of both the San Juan and LaSalle's. Will you please advise your RAC members? So I wanted to make sure that I did that. So at this time, we are going to go ahead and take questions from the RAC for Darren.
This is Eric. I got a question. What is the theory behind offering 2 tags to, one individual? What's the idea or the concept behind that proposal?
A couple of things, Eric. One is we're starting to see units across the state that aren't meeting their harvest objective, the quota that the biologists have set. There have been some units that are kind of in that category all the time. The Poncegon's one. And then there are other units where we're trying to achieve a harvest level and we're just not getting there. And so the thinking there is that if we offer a person who has the equipment, the know-how, and the skill set to take a line, an opportunity to take a second one, we may start seeing some of those quotas get filled. The other part of this is with units that are under predator management plans where we've got concerns about either bighorn sheep or deer. Same rationale. The objective there is to try to reduce those densities of lions over a short period of time. And so on those units, this might help us get to those objectives a little bit quicker too. We'll see. There are some other states that offer multiple permits. New Mexico's one. I believe Idaho, you can get a second one on some units. So some states do offer a similar opportunity.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Darren. This is Deanna. I think in your presentation, you were mentioning that the models for cougar populations indicate that we have a high number of cougars. Can you explain a little bit about what goes into the models and what data is being used?
Yeah, the population model is something that we run just to kind of give us a feel for where we are. It's based on our harvest numbers. And so what we do is we calculate past population levels based on the numbers of different age classes we see. So the logic is that if you took 3 5-year-old cougars in year 1, or say in 2010, those 3 individuals would have been alive and on the landscape the year before as, what did I say, 3-year-olds? As 2-year-olds. So you kind of back calculate. That gives you kind of a minimum. It doesn't take into account any kind of natural mortality that might be occurring. This is just strictly estimating what you would have to have had to see the harvest of those different age classes over time. You can only go so far into the future. You don't go into the future, but you can only predict up to maybe a couple of years in the past on that. And so the last estimate we have is for 2018. Because of the juvenile component, since it's illegal to take kittens, and people don't typically take younger, yearling animals, just they're smaller. Those are underrepresented, but once you get past 2, they tend to be pretty reliable. So you're always about 2 years behind, and that model indicates that what we've seen and what we hear anecdotally, that we've seen a growing lion population. It jives with a lot of what we're seeing in the West, that predator populations have been growing. We're starting to see lions kind of pioneer into new areas in the United States as well. So having said that, some of our harvest numbers seem to indicate we're starting to see on some units, we're seeing higher percentage of females in the harvest and younger age class animals. So that indicates on some units, at least, that we're probably starting to see some declines. And that, is by design, and those were all taken into account when we made the recommendations this time around. Does that help, Dana? I don't want to go on forever, but
no, that helped a lot. Thank you.
We have other questions for Darren.
Darren, I have a few questions. So you mentioned that they shortened harvest objective. I'm sorry, I'm fumbling all over my words right now. I haven't talked for a while. I've been listening. the shortened harvest objective and unlimited season on the San Juan as a result of people coming in and hunting or chasing bears under the pretense of chasing lions. Were those, do you know if those violations or those people that were suspected to be doing this, was that residents or was that non-residents?
I think I'll throw this to maybe Roger or someone in the region, since we've got some experts on the line.
The ones that we have suspected, the primary component of that was non-residents, and the whole issue of piggybacking, without going into a bunch of specifics, but there's some oddities when people show up when conditions aren't favorable to chase cougars in the middle of bear hunts, and they're there with cougar permits.
Thank you. Was it ever considered to make this restriction only applicable to non-residents?
We talked about that. There are always concerns when you single out a specific group, and so we had those discussions, talking with the region and with the Attorney General's representatives. We decided that this really was a way we could address the concern without having to make that specific restriction. So right now during spring pursuit, it's unlimited for residents, and there's a small number of non-resident permits available. And so by the nature of the bear recommendations, that limits the number of non-residents that can hunt those specific units. They can still come to Utah and pursue or hunt everywhere else in the state. It's just these 3 units that we've got some restrictions. So we felt like that addressed the concern we had, especially given what we saw on the ground. So that's kind of the rationale behind the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. So I've met with the San Juan Houndsman Association, and I've also talked to a lot of big game hunters down here. And one thing that we've seen in a lot of RAC meetings is that the houndsman associations and the big game hunters don't necessarily always see eye to eye, and a lot of times we sit on the other side of the fence. However, I've had a consensus with everybody that I've talked to, and I've had Lyle Bayless, who wrote the letter that Tricia referenced in her comment. He was in my house along with a couple of other members talking about their concerns. And what I believe, from what I've seen, everybody that I talk to is against that shortened hunting season for lions. It's already illegal to chase bears with the mountain lion tag. And so basically this is just another layer, making it extra super illegal for the people to do that very thing. We count on the houndsmen for their expertise and really being our only real way of controlling the mountain lion population. And when we keep putting more and more of these restrictions on our houndsmen, we're making it less tempting for them to have hounds and feed them and train them and do all that stuff that comes with it. And I know that it is strange it's not as common to have people out there chasing lions on dry ground, but there are people down here that do it, a lot of locals that do that. And I do believe that the locals are very considerate about the law. I know there's been some situations where possibly non-residents haven't been, but there's also, I'm sure there's non-residents that are also that also follow that law. And I just think that we need to enforce the laws that we have in place. And I'm strongly against shortening the lion hunting season on the
So Scoot, let's bring that back up. So let's just kind of keep this to questions right now for Darren, and then we will kind of come back, and then let's have you reiterate that comment at that time. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
I have a question, Darren. Actually kind of goes along with what Scoot was talking about. Do we have data with the houndsmen down there to know if there's a sect of them that they only chase cougars and some that only chase bears, or is there overlap and they pretty much both do everything with the residents? Like, you know,
that's probably a good. Sorry, Kent, go ahead.
You know, I know guys that run hounds here, and pretty much everybody around here is both. You know, they'll run lions and bears both. And I was just curious about that, if it was going to affect them with this closure, with your amended recommendation, and where bear pursuit permits are unlimited over the counter for residents, then does that alleviate the concerns of the houndsmen in San Juan County?
That was the intent of this amendment that I just presented. I think for the first part of your question, I'll throw it again to Roger or Dustin. Just they know who's out there, and maybe they can speak to, you know, what effect this might have on local houndsmen. The intent behind the amendment was to allow folks that already could be there hunting bears to take a lion if they wanted to as well. It'd be somewhat limited in that they'd have to draw a bear tag to kill, but if they had a pursuit tag for bear, then they could take and use their lion tag as well.
I could comment on that later when we get to the comment section from what I've heard from the local houndsman.
This is Dustin. I would just say, yeah, the majority of people do chase both lions and bears, but there are a handful out there that will just focus on lions specifically and don't like to chase bears at all. With this recommendation where we do have residents that could buy a bear pursuit permit or harvest permit and the lion tag and chase all the way up to May 31st, like we always have, that wouldn't affect the residents here. Where they get hurt is in the summer portion, where they'd have to get one of the restricted bear permits to be able to pursue still. That June portion, hardly anybody's out chasing lions anyway during the date hunt for bears. They can't be out there chasing for bears. There might be one or two guys down here that still would do that for lions, but that's about it.
Okay, so any more questions for Darren?
I got one.
Okay.
Hope I'm not interrupting somebody. Darren, you said that there's some states that allow 2 tags, some other states that have kind of incorporated that. I'm curious if you know if they see a difference in like the age and the sex of the lions that they're killing, if they're killing younger lions or if they're killing more females. And the reason I ask that is because I guess I envision in my mind with 2 tags that there'll be some people that will that normally would not kill a lion. They'd wait for a mature tom, especially outfitters that might have a hunter that they would say, okay, here's a younger lion, but maybe if you just want to kill something, you can kill it, and we're going to keep hunting until you find a bigger one. I'm just wondering if you know if there's any data from those other states on that.
I'm not familiar with what they're seeing in their harvest data. It's definitely something we'd want to look at. You know, for us, if the unit is not under predator management, then we'd still be managing to our planned guidelines, and so we'd adjust quotas moving forward based on what we see in the harvest to try to make sure we're maintaining those planned guidelines. And then you know, for predator management units, we want to see that population reduced over a short period of time. So the goal would be the opposite. We'd actually like to see more juveniles and females taken over the short term. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question, Steve. I'm not sure what other states are seeing with those, and I'm not 100% sure how popular that second tag has been. It'll be interesting to see how folks react here. And yeah, we'll just have to keep an eye on it.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Well, I have another question. I was curious on the rule change for clarifying, like just leaving the kittens with spots, but then removing the other wording. Didn't know what was behind that and how it helps clarify.
What we found is it's difficult sometimes to tell. The wording was any cougar accompanied by an adult, and if you've got yearling male kittens and a female, sometimes it's hard to distinguish, especially if they're not side by side. We felt like that was asking a little bit much from houndsmen and from hunters, and the intent there has always been to try to eliminate the harvest of females with kittens, with dependent kittens. And so we left the definition of kitten in place and removed the restriction for accompanied by an adult, because that requires someone to try and figure out in the field what they're looking at. And if they make a mistake, they could potentially be cited, and we didn't feel like that was fair.
All right, thanks.
One more question, Darren. Is there a problem now with people killing collared lions? Is that something you guys have a problem with?
No, I would say more generally no. We have seen a few taken off of the cash unit. Some collared lions are involved in depredation situations, and we always support the removal of those animals if they're killing sheep. And then there were 3 out of about 38 lions we've had collared that were taken by sportsmen, and probably one of those. It looks like one of those was involved taking sheep earlier in the year. So I guess that's a long way of saying it. We haven't seen a concern, and so our recommendation. There's 2 things going on here. One is we wanted to clarify in the rule how the division would go about restricting that if we ever felt like we needed to. But also, we're not recommending at this time to prohibit it. We'll put a blurb in the guidebook as we've done in the past, just encouraging people not to take collared lions. It comes at some expense, and especially takes a lot of time to catch those animals. And the data is important, but we don't feel like it's been enough of a problem that we need to prohibit it outright. So that's how we'll approach it.
Okay.
So this is Darren.
Okay.
Yeah. So Darren, could you explain to us why you're making this change? What the reasoning is behind that? What we may have seen last year to come forward with this proposal on the LaSalles?
Again, I could let the region pick this up. The primary concern here is that this is probably something we should have taken into account when we made the bear recommendations. I think the challenge that the law had down there is that it's sometimes difficult to make a case that someone's a bad actor, that they appear to be hunting bears and they don't have a bear permit. And when you have the lion hunters in the mix, it makes it difficult to enforce. And I'll let Roger elaborate if he wants, but that was kind of the thing driving it. It just became difficult on the ground to differentiate. Unless you follow someone to a tree and establish intent, it makes it tough. This way, if you're there hunting with dogs during that time period, you need to have some sort of bear permit along with your lion tag.
If I might add, Darren, too, some of the reports that we received actually came from local houndsmen who were telling us these people didn't belong. And that was some of the driving behind this. Like I say, some of these guys were showing up at some really odd times to be hunting cougars. And like I say, I think we had a number of reports where local houndsmen said, hey, that guy's a non-resident. He don't have a bear permit. He shouldn't be here. So I think that stemmed some of this argument as well.
Thank you. think at this time, if it's okay, Chris, I'm going to go ahead and ask you to, again, just give a summary of our public comments. And there were quite a few, and hopefully everybody got those.
Yeah, we had 25% support the proposal and 75% oppose the proposal. And you were able to read the comments, so you can see in the opposing vote which way they went, increase or decrease of tags.
So at this point, let's go ahead and move into clarifications and or comments for Darren or Chris. And if we don't have comments, if we have sub motions that we want to pull apart, we can do that also.
So I just have a couple more comments regarding what I was talking about earlier. I do agree that having non-residents show up and saying that they're hunting bears is a little less likely, just because the residents that I know that do this, it's generally in response to knowing of a troubled lion or a problem lion, knowing of a kill. You know, somebody out in the hills calls their buddy and says, hey, there's a fresh lion track, come up here and chase it. That's hard to do if you're a non-resident, to be that responsive. And so I see the problem being, I can see how the suspicion would be higher on non-residents. However, I still think that the vast majority of residents and non-residents are out there trying to follow the law to the best of their ability when they're chasing the lions. And I really don't like the idea of punishing them, punishing the law-abiding hunters, and taking away that opportunity from houndsmen. And regarding the amendment, we're allowing people to chase lions if they have a spring bear tag or a summer pursuit license. I know that those pursuit permits are not easy to come by. There's several people that have been putting in for them since they've been available and not drawn those permits. And so saying that they still have that opportunity that's not necessarily true. They do if they have those permits, but those bear permits are not easy to come by.
I guess I would make a comment kind of to that. You know, I do appreciate the need to get out and use the hounds and enjoy the outdoors. However, you know, from a management perspective, I think it's important to consider the ruling on the bear and what we've been doing there, as well as this limited nature of just in the LaSalle's. There's like 3 units involved, is not the whole state. So I think there's been a lot of thought for the amended proposal from Division of Wildlife, and I think it makes sense from a management perspective.
I'd like to make a comment. As I read through the public comments, I saw several comments that stated that the recommendations were not science-based, unfounded. I couldn't disagree with that any more strongly, because I've been involved with the division. I see the things that they're able to do with the conservation dollars, with they're collaring lions, studying them, collaring the deer. We're seeing, within 48 hours, usually there's someone out there once there's a mortality, to see what actually caused the death of that deer. And so I guess I want to commend the division and, the guys at BYU for all their time and their effort. I think we have more factual information regarding, the wildlife and the predators than we've ever had before. So.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Are there any more comments and or need for clarification? And if not, I'm going to entertain a motion. And I don't know if we want to pull anything out, Scoot, on the side, or
Yeah, as soon as I can find my mute button, there we go. So yeah, I would like to make a motion that we reject the proposed shortened harvest objective and unlimited season on the LaSalle, San Juan Mountains, and Beaver East.
can you repeat that a little bit? You were breaking up just a little bit.
Yeah, sorry. Can you hear me good now, Trish?
Yeah, and are you talking about the amendment? Is that what you're specifically?
No, I'm talking about the proposal to limit or to shorten the harvest objective in the limited season.
Okay, got it.
I'd like to, so my motion is I would like to propose that we reject that proposal to shorten the harvest objective and unlimited seasons on the LaSalle, San Juan Mountains, and the Brook Cliff East.
Okay, so I have a proposal by Scoot Flannery to reject the shortened harvest objectives, shortened harvest objective seasons, and just catch me, Scoot, if I don't get that right. In the LaSalle, San Juans, and Brook Cliff East. Is that correct?
Sounds like you got it, yeah.
Okay, great. And then do I have a second on that motion?
Just one more point of clarification. Would that be for resident and non-resident or just resident? Scoot.
So in this case, to avoid any issues with the Commerce Clause and anything else they ran into with non-residents, I would say for both non-resident and non-resident.
And can I ask a clarification? If it's rejected, do we need to know what it's going to go to? Just stay as normal, or
Yeah,
as
I'm
it
glad
was?
you brought that up. There is a different. Remember that San Juan and LaSalle does have a restriction on hounds already in the fall, and so if you want to maintain what it was last year, that'd be helpful for us. Or if you want it to be the same as the rest of the state, those would probably be your options. But we have had. The reason that we have that restriction in the fall is to avoid overlap with hounds and those limited entry. I believe it's the elk season down there. So
right.
We can do whatever you like, but yeah, if you have a preference, let us know.
So let me amend that to say that I would like to have it be as it was last year.
Okay. Okay, so, and then do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second that.
And who was that? I'm sorry.
Steve.
Thank you. So I have a proposal or a motion by Scoot and a second by Steve to maintain, if I've got this correct, okay, the season that we had last year in LaSalle, San Juan, and Brook Cliff East. And I'm going to go ahead, and I've got a second on that, so I'm going to go ahead and take a roll call. So Kent, yay or nay?
Nay.
Steve?
Yes.
Scoot?
Yes.
Thank you. Eric?
Nay.
Thank you. Darren?
No.
Kirk?
Yes.
Brad?
No.
Lynn?
Yes.
Todd?
No.
Dana?
No.
And so it looked like that failed 6-4, okay, on that motion. I get that, Chris? Thank you so much. Okay, so do I have any other motions? Just side motions, or do we want to move into the proposal as a whole?
Just a comment. I'd like to clarify my vote on that if I could.
Okay.
My reasoning is I was going to vote with Scoot on this. I'm going to oppose it completely until I seen the amended proposal from the division. And I think the amended proposal is probably going to be a good middle ground to find. I appreciate the plight of the houndsman in the extreme southeast part of the state. It's a long haul for them to go anywhere else to hunt. but I also have to look at it from the division's perspective, and they need to make the tools for the law enforcement division a little bit easier for them to take care of the bad actors.
Thank you, Kent. So do I have a motion at this time?
This is Eric. I think what Kent said was well said. Having said that, I would make a motion that we accept the division's proposal as presented.
Okay, thank you, Eric. So I have a motion by Eric Luke to accept the division's proposals for Cougar recommendations and rule amendments for 2020-21 as presented. Do I have a second on that?
Just to clarify that that motion, Eric, is for the amended proposal for the LaSalle, San Juan, and Brook Cliffs, correct?
Yes, correct. That would include the amendment.
Okay, then I'll second the motion.
Okay, and I've got a second by Kent Johnson, so I'm going to go ahead and take a roll call. Kent?
Yes.
Thank you. Steve?
Nay.
Thank you. Scoop?
Nay.
Thank you. Eric?
Yes.
Darren?
Yes.
Kirk?
Nay.
Thank you. Brad?
Yes.
Lynn?
No.
Todd?
Yes.
And Dana?
Yes.
And it looks like that passed 6-4. Is that correct, Chris? So at this time, we have covered all of the agenda items. Chris, do we have anything else we've got to do?
I do not. You know, one thing I failed to mention in my update, and I felt really bad about this, so maybe I'll just mention on a happy, good note, leaving. We do have a new law enforcement canine in the region. So our officer Brimhall got a new dog. He's a little puppy. His name is Cooper. So you might be seeing a dog with some of our officers in the coming years. So we're excited for that.
Very cool. All right. Aaron, you can ask Chris Wood about my Venmo address.
I've had to pay her before. True.
You had to pay me. And at this time, I think we will adjourn. Do I need to do a roll call on that, Chris, or we good?
We can adjourn, I think.
Okay, good. Thank you so much.
I'm so proud.
Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good night. Mike, are we good?